welcome to another episode of Crash Cinnamon. This is your host, McKenna. I did say this in the last episode 5, that this episode 6 will be about the answering your questions, and I did say it's Q&A, but really it will be about the A, because you can't really ask the questions have already been asked on the social media pages for Crash Cinnamon. If you haven't joined or followed us, we are on Facebook, Crash Cinnamon Podcast, and on Instagram, Crash Cinnamon Podcast as well. And all the platforms you can catch the podcast, you can subscribe. Some platforms is about subscribing, others about favoriting the podcast, and then you can always know when the episodes are they're aired or published or go live. I just want to apologize because I'm a mom. You might hear my child make entrance or debut every so often. So yeah, life has to continue. Life has to continue in this working life of a mother. So I will just ask the questions, or rather read out the questions that were asked, and then give my opinion, or rather the answer of what I think should happen. So in episode 1, there's lots an episode. I did say ask questions for episode 1 and 2, but people have also asked for episode 3, so I will actually answer that as well. So in episode 1, we talked about social capital, friendships, and it was the startup episode, and I shared a story about the friend who said our friendship wasn't that deep, okay? And episode 2 was carrying on from that, and we talked about reciprocity, and episode 3 was about sense of belonging, which talked about acceptance, rejection, bullying, and I shared a big chunk of the podcast on suicide. Okay, so on episode 1, somebody asked, "Are you still friends with both the girls?" So I'm assuming they're asking about the girl who said our friendship is not strong. It's not deep. And I think I answered that in episode 2 without realizing it would be a question. But yes, we are, in the sense that we're not enemies, but we don't really talk because, as I said in episode 2, she's not one of those people who's on social media a lot and doesn't text or call. But whenever she gets in touch, we do talk, and I guess that sums it up. For the other girl, yes, the one who incorporated me in the group, we became very close friends. In fact, she became like a best friend, and our friendship was amazing, carried through high school and into adult life. And unfortunately, she passed away in 2010, and that is something I'm still dealing with. It's quite difficult. Yeah. Hi. So somebody else asked about in episode 1 how I handled the situation. I don't know if I handled it in the sense of being told years later, because this discussion of knowing how she felt about the friendship happened 20 years plus on, so it was just more of a shock, and it made me sit back and just reflect, and then it kind of gave me a new template on how to navigate friendships in the future. Then somebody else asked, hopefully that answered the question. Let me elaborate more. I think there's no day you'll ever feel amazing if somebody tells you that they valued you less than you valued them. So it kind of, wakes you up, and you're like, okay, I need to change a few things. So that's how I handled it, and I appreciated her honesty. And you can't be You can't be sad and be like, you have to be my friend, we have to be so close. No, you have to accept that's how things are, and it's okay. And probably where she was at that time as well, we will never know. So yes, so that's the thing. Then the other question was on episode 2, reciprocity, about friends who just take. Somebody asked, what do you do with the friends who take? How do you get rid of them? Oh gosh. Can I just first say this, purely my opinions. I'm not telling anyone or asking anyone to end friendships or relationships or the situation you're in. I'm just barely giving my overview. So I will say this: if it's become such an overbearing situation whereby you're not at peace, your peace of mind is really being affected, your mental space is being affected. Every time you see the call of this person, you just feel or you have to make up excuses not to talk to this person or whatever, then I can just say that friendship is not healthy and it's not doing you any good. And probably you might consider how to change things. Maybe have a sit down with this person, whether it's a friend or a relative or even your spouse, and just say, okay, listen, we've been in this relationship for X amount of years or months, and I've noticed that this, and give scenarios, just don't be like you in a very accusatory kind of tone, no, just because you're trying to share your pain and helpfully showing this person where they've always gone wrong in relation to how you want to be treated and loved and valued. So it would be helpful if you have examples and say, okay, listen, and it's not a list really, but just say, okay, on this occasion I asked you to do this and I gave you ample time, or I required you to, and I informed you of such things, and this is how you reacted, and this is what you did, and how you reacted and what you did, this is how it affected me. So probably have that discussion with them, see how they take it. If they don't take it seriously, if they don't see, okay, this is my friend or spouse or brother, sister who's wounded by how I've treated them and I ought to change, or I'm really sorry, then probably you'll just have to suck it up and say, okay, I've lost on that, But if it's something really continuous, especially in friendships, you see, with family you can't choose family, you can't remove somebody from family setup. So with friendships, you can choose to end something that is not helpful in any way, and I know people who've gone into debt because their friends have made them go into debt, make them borrow this. They're like, yeah, and they know how to manipulate them very well, and I don't want us to be in a situation where we're going through this, we're stressed trying to see what we can do to make ends meet because we've borrowed here, there and everywhere to please our friends, Or if it's a spousal situation, there's always counseling, and also if you have good couple friends, like probably the ones who are your best couple or whatever, best man or maid of honor, could speak to them if you trust them enough, or if they're still in your lives, and just see if they can address this issue. If you're Christian, probably speak to someone who mentors you on marriage, or church minister you can trust, and they can give you sound advice. Because with real marriage is a whole kettle is I can't even speak today. Marriage is very different in how you approach. And especially when you're trying to show a spouse that they've been selfish, they've just been thinking about themselves, there's no real friendship there. It has a lot of weight and how it can change things. And if in the end it's really detrimental to you, and I know there are some couples whereby the wife or husband has really caused the other party to be really in stress, then taking even antidepressants, they are suicidal because of how they treat them. So when it reaches that level, it's really toxic, and probably exit is the only option, because by then you've maybe talked so many times till you're blue in your face. But if you've never tried to sit down and explain to this person you're with how their selfishness affects you, then maybe try that route. And also you could find somebody who your spouse listens to, probably, and just say, hey, I want you to be a mediator for us, and I want to share this with my wife, my husband, and I feel if you're there, it could help. Yeah. Some people have written letters or notes or emails to their spouse. Yeah, believe it or not. And I think it works sometimes, because if someone reads something, they can sometimes, with eliminating the voice, it can help. And if you read something from a text, some people take it better. So try and see what works for you. Okay. And in the end, remember, is we are all trying to be better people, and we are all trying to navigate through life. So be graceful even in the way you approach the subject with the person who's hurt you, the person who's not doing what you need them to do. And also, I think it's also high time we are very clear on our expectations with the people we're in a relationship with, whether it's friendships or you're dating, or you're married, or you're in a business partnership. It's good you just outlay what you would expect. I know people say you shouldn't, but I think it's the only way, and you can talk about it freely, have lunch together. Okay, well, in this COVID times, people are not seeing each other, but you can Zoom and have video chats and just say, okay, but there's something I wanted us to discuss, and this is what I expected. So it's good to be clear. Communication is key. I think I've answered that question. The other question was, or rather it was a comment. Somebody said we have to be careful that we are making healthy friendships. It doesn't look like we are desperate, and it doesn't look like we are buying friendships. So, we have to be careful about that. And I agree, because sometimes people make friends because they are lonely in the wrong kind of way. And I don't mean if you're lonely not to have friends. No, I mean in the sense of wanting to fill that gap with somebody else, so which is wrong, really. Friendships and relationships are organic, and should be organic in that sense, whereby it's of mutual benefit. It's for the growth purpose. It's, even in the Bible it says iron sharpens iron. So it's for that, for the sake of navigating the earth. I mean, we are all here to relate in one way or another. Okay. And then there's another comment that says, let me read that. You should be careful of the kind of friendships we form, and be careful of our space and ourselves, to always take care of ourselves so we are not manipulated, we are not taken advantage of. And that's really good. That's a wonderful point. And I think also I'll jump on here and say, if another friend comes and says to you, hey McKenna, I've noticed your relationship with so and so is causing you to be unhappy, to do this and this and that, be also receptive to that, unless this other person is conniving or trying to manipulate. But really, if it's coming from a pure place, a place of love, listen to them, because sometimes you cannot see what's happening inside the bubble you're in. So listen to this other person and just wait and say, okay, yeah, they did say this, how can I sort this situation? Okay. So even though I think this other question is, how do you help somebody who doesn't want to be helped? That is difficult. I think with everything, people have to get to that point of realization where they know they need to be better. So sometimes you can approach someone, and if they are not in that space yet, you can be hitting a wall. So probably leave it until they're in a more receptive mood or space or season. And I'm not saying that you still have to be in that, what can I say, uncomfortable situation. Probably you can step back a little bit and give it time, and you like continue doing life and just give this other person space, and hopefully it will dawn to them, okay, something has happened. My friend is not calling me as often as they used to, or my business partner, when it comes to certain issues, they don't want to go there. Really, they don't want to be what can I say, they are not as talkative as they used to be. So, and hopefully that will dawn to them to do the right thing. This other thing I'm actually worried about is most of the times when all these things are happening to us, you can become very closed up, and you build walls, and then the right friends come, or good people with good intentions come, and because you're so hurt and closed up and have high walls, you're not able to receive love or comfort or the kind of friendships or respect you're supposed to. So I'd watch for that, so that you don't get to a place where you're in a corner where you lose yourself. That's not what you are here on earth for. No. So let's be mindful of that. So this was on episode 3. Somebody asked me, how do I deal with the memories? I don't know. I mean, it's not an easy thing when you remember the person who used to be in your life, whether they were there for 5 minutes or a year or whatever, and then they committed suicide. It's not easy. I mean, and also to remember that they actually ended their life in that way is not easy either. I mean, we are human beings. You can continue with life, but somehow you see something on the street, it reminds you of them, and it's quite difficult. One thing I didn't say in that podcast episode, it's not the first time I've lost a very close person or somebody I came to love and cherish through suicide. It's happened a few times, and also I've experienced people I've been really close to, even in relationships with, try to take their life, and some very close where you actually walk in or you're there, and it's traumatizing. Let me not lie. And they might get over it, but you start seeing them in a different way because you have seen them at their most, I can say, vulnerable position, and you worry if they're going to try and take their life again, or it's this cycle that I don't know. I have no answers to be honest. I'm still trying to figure that out. once I am able to, maybe I can revisit this question again. Somebody else asked, how do you deal with the shame and guilt of if you're the one who's tried to commit suicide? Again, because I've never been in this situation, I wouldn't really know what to say. However, I will not try and equate it like any other life experience. I'll just say, you're here, you're still here, and forgive yourself and just see what was causing you to be in this space where you feel hopeless, like everything is lost. And see what can be removed, rectified, restored. And if you can't, really speak to someone. There are professionals, there are organizations that are out there to support people. Yeah, please, that I think would be the safest way. Yeah, and give yourself another chance. Just like anything you've ever gone through in life, this is another hurdle you have to jump. So give yourself room, recalibrate and start again. Okay. Yeah. Another question was, how do you deal with, I wish I knew this, I wish I could have done this. I think what they mean is in sense of, you feel like you wish you could have talked to them more, prayed for them more, texted more, in terms of suicide. Well, yeah, we go through that. And let me say this, purely from my experience, sometimes when people have really, really made that decision to commit suicide, no matter what you do, they kind of just go and do what they've decided to do. And so don't blame yourself. It is nothing to do with you as the friend, as the relative, as the spouse, or as the business partner. It has nothing to do with you. It's more about them and how they feel and their health and how they just couldn't cope with that situation. So I would say, take it a day at a time and release yourself from that baggage, because if you start carrying that one, it's too huge, it's too heavy, it's too overwhelming. You'll also lose yourself. And I've seen people who they've lost loved ones through suicide, and it devastates them because they believe it's their fault, and then they spiral down, and that's not what we want. We want healthy people. And yeah, get help as well. If you feel it's just too much, it's too overwhelming, get help. Speak to professionals. Yeah. If you're Christian, I'd ask you to speak to God about it. Yeah. Yeah. And then, is that the last question? Let me see. Yeah, I think those are all the questions. Yeah, there's one more. Somebody asked how I came up with the name for my podcast, Crushed Cinnamon. And I think I'll end the Q&A on that one. So this podcast will be a bit longer, but yeah, it's just to answer all the questions. How I came up with that. So my first name actually is Kezia, and it's from the Bible. It means perfume made from cinnamon, and so I've always gone by the name Cinnamon in many things as a nickname or as a name I like. And I like cinnamon, the spice itself. It's just amazing, As for crushed, the crushed part of it is really I was just trying to illustrate that my podcast is about me being open. It's me having gone through stuff, so parts of me are still healing, and there's parts of me I still haven't figured out. And Also, I was just trying to show that it will be very raw, very honest conversations, and where I don't have answers, I'll just say I don't have answers, and that's it. And that's how it came about. And also, Crush Cinema is amazing. It's what you do grind sometimes, cinnamon foil, pastries and stuff like that, tea. So sometimes being crushed is the only way to create the sweetness, the desired effect that we need. Yeah, so I hope that answers the questions. If you have more questions, I'll create another episode in the future to answer all the questions that you have. And again, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Crush Cinnamon. The next episode 7, we'll talk about trust and how that impacts the relationships we form as human beings. Thank you.